rocketing through the atmosphere and sliding into the second gear while miles below the people cheer their new invaders, the new frontier. Then there are those who do not share the gravity of their lives fear. In their eyes find over fear, rocket sounds for what they hear. War is very lovely. War is very lovely. War is very lovely. War is very lovely. We must somehow bring this on. The lost our heads that will fall along. Under the over charm is watching the swarm crowd from afar. Exploration, liberation, spending more of our pockets fill. Assessment of our investments, God was on to overkill. Like the groups of great surprise, you are got first. Dollar bills, they gave us hell to protectionism, but we're on a new age communism. We can give the cap on capitalism. What have we got here? Hey, war is very lovely. War is very lovely. War is very lovely. War is very lovely. War is very lovely.
Yeah. So here we are. Welcome to HipHop High Notes, coming to you live from the Hi Note, a historic NYC Lower East Side, right around the corner from such historic venues as New Blue, where we'll be on July 8th. Today we got a special treat, cooking it up with some vinyl. The right temperature in the building. We're here with my man John. Taking us there on the ones and twos. Okay. Yeah, so let's get into the interview.
Oh yeah.
So John, what's your full name or what's your DJ name?
My DJ name is. Let me start with my real name first, I guess. It's John Tenezaka.
John Tenezane.
Tenezaka.
Tenezaka.
Yeah. Or if my mom gets angry, she calls me just Christopher.
Christopher. Okay.
Yeah. So that works too.
Uh-huh.
And I guess that's for my DJ name. I guess it's more like an artist name, but I use it for whatever. It's Modbill. Modbill.
Modbill.
Yeah.
Modbill. Modbill. And what's the origin of that name?
It's back when there was the mayoral race, right, in New York City.
With what?
Back when there was the mayoral race in New York City. The press would describe Eric Adams or anyone who had some slight, like I guess, moderate takes as a moderate villain.
Mm.
And originally, I took that phrase, the moderate villain. And I was like, all right, that's kind of an interesting.
A moderate villain. I like that.
Right, but it seemed a bit too, I guess, maybe too political. So I just kind of squashed it together and just took parts of it. Modville.
I like it.
Yeah.
And so, how long has it been going by Modville?
I'd say maybe 2 years.
About 2 years.
Yeah, but it's just 2 years with a name. Whereas as of being practical with the name has been every other couple of months. Let's say.
Every other couple of months.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so like so sporadically.
Yeah, sporadically when I get
vinyling it up.
my friends ask me to play some shows with them, or when I find like myself at some open mics or open decks, that's when I guess use that.
Okay. And so how long have you been into the practice of spinning vinyl?
Bit of a journey there. I started with just being a musician. How I got into vinyl was probably 2016, 2017. I was working for a audio production kind of shop, and they rented equipments like this. My job was to like maintain it, repair it, and when it wasn't busy, the previous owner of that shop also had some records laying around. So I would dig through his crates and figure out how this thing works, and just found myself there for like hours listening to music. Yeah.
And so that was your first ever time coming in contact with vinyl collection?
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is this? It's like a big, giant plastic CD.
Yeah. How old were you again?
Shit. 20, I think 22, 21,
22.
Early 20s for sure.
And so what was the first vinyl that you officially owned? Like I imagine you finally went one day and brought one, tore the plastic off for yourself. What was that? What was that vinyl?
It may have been like a Radiohead album, I think.
Oh, so it was probably used.
Maybe.
Used.
I don't really remember it. That, like, because eventually I took some of the records.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. From the guy who I was working under, but like, for example, this one I found.
And what is that?
No idea. It's so like. There has no information that you can go by, really. I think it's like a remix that it has like 4 tracks, all different versions, and they're all like really good songs.
Yeah. But and on that label there, it just says like this is a vinyl. Like it doesn't say anything about the music.
No, and that's sometimes those are the best records where it's just a blank label.
Wow.
And you can have no idea who made it, but it was made.
Wow. So are you familiar with the idea that vinyl keeps memory?
Yeah, they kind of did that with that. Was it the Space Voyager? Like in the 60s or 70s?
Oh, right. Okay, when they sent it up that thing.
Yeah, it was a golden plate, and they scanned like or the same process of how vinyl is made. They did that in like a golden plaque.
Yeah.
And they inserted like human noises, like sounds from nature.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's pretty cool that thing is like floating in the middle of space right now.
Yeah. And it's recording the whole universe.
It's not recording the universe. It's more that it has how could I say this? If something ever found that piece of spacecraft, there's instructions on it on how to play what was engraved on it.
Okay. Oh, so it's not playing. It's not like they sent the record and it's constantly playing and drifting into space. Right. It's just drifting into space.
Yeah.
So the reason why I mentioned about the vinyl records is because that needle, the same way you kind of write the vinyl, the needle is less abrasive, and it's not like receiving much vibration from the room and imprinting it onto the vinyl, but it is receiving information from the room and imprinting it on the vinyl every single time that it's played. So that if you have a vinyl record from 1970s up until now, every single time that it was played, micro scratches were added to the vinyl itself. Maybe somebody could come along with some laser detection system that could, algorithmically remove the music and only hear those scratches. You probably could hear conversations or like some type of weird.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen images of like the close-ups of the grooves in these vinyls, and they're like so intricate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So you and when you were a musician, like what was your lane or your craft musically?
Uh, Started with like really, I guess, like rock. I really liked rock, alternative. Nirvana was a huge inspiration. Like learning the bass line for "Come as You Are."
Okay.
Pretty, it's like
Yeah.
a bit of a walking bass line.
Hmm.
I remember being so thrilled when I figured it out. I called my mom. I like kind of played for it on her over the phone. She had no idea what it was, but I never really called my mom up randomly to do things like that. But
hmm
it was bass, then guitar, and then drums. Uh, and on weekends, this was when I was still in high school. My uncle had a garage where he also used to rent out like equipment, and he'd have like a used drum set and some amplifiers, and I'd spend my Sunday afternoons there, just trying to make something. Yeah.
Wow. So, and this location of you starting, was that in New York?
Yeah, in New York,
Where are you from originally?
Ecuador.
And when did you first move to New York from Ecuador?
Came here when I was 5.
Came when you were 5. Okay, so you didn't have much of a music career there, right?
No, but growing up here, my parents would play some like, I guess some folk. You would describe it as folk music, or music that they grew up with, or
Uh-huh.
what they would consider pop music from, I don't know, Ecuador growing up in the 80s or 90s. Because that's, well, mostly 80s.
From Ecuador, also music from Ecuador.
Well, yeah, I think so.
Mm.
Because where I grew up in Queens, very prominent, like Latin community, Colombian, Ecuadorians, Mexicans, and I'm sure they brought their taste in music along as well. They would play it in restaurants and like in family gatherings. There'd always be a certain playlist that they have. Let's say.
What is it like? So where do you live at now in New York?
Recently moved to Flatbush.
Flatbush. Okay, so it's kind of a different neighborhood or similar to where you?
It's actually very reminiscent of
where you grew up.
Yeah. I hopped around a bit. When I first moved out of Elmhurst in Queens, I moved to Bushwick. Then I stayed there for a bit through the pandemic, and then I got a nice deal by Borum Hill, a neighborhood. It's very, I guess, it's a different demographic, very higher class demographic. Yeah. I figured why not? I'm not gonna find myself living here like any other time. And between those two neighborhoods, Borum Hill and Bushwick, I feel more welcome and at home in Flatbush because it kind of reminds you of like Queens.
So, what was characteristic about growing up in Elmhurst?
I guess it would be like how the neighborhoods would change. Like when you would walk on like Roosevelt or Corona, very Latin heavy community. And if you walk down towards the Elmhurst area, it would go more like Chinese, Filipino. And I lived like right. It's funny. I lived in this block that was like kind of like an island. It was like I don't know. It felt like a weird intersection, honestly. But for the most part, it's very, very quiet. I call it like a suburban ghetto sometimes.
Okay.
It's like it feels like the suburbs at times. Then you make the corner and you got like all these graffiti. You got everything that's pretty, much like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't really spent much time in Queens, especially that part, like that side of Queens.
Yeah.
So like far as like spinning vinyl, Did you have any goals with it when you first got started, or was it just like mainly for the passion and the love and the joy of listening to that music?
I guess I have had more, or have or had more goals really as a musician.
Mm.
Where it comes to spinning vinyls, uh, I've made some friends who do like doing the same thing, who like the same music, and the ultimate goal for that is just to throw parties and have a good time and play some
Yeah,
awesome music.
yeah,
Yeah. I guess I'm more ambitious on music production side
mm,
because at that point it's a different kind of craft, let's
yeah,
say. In this case, it's more like finding great music, playing it, having a good time.
yeah,
And the other one, it's more like you're crafting the music.
yeah.
So I guess I take that more, I guess, seriously. I guess I
Seriously,
don't know.
yeah. How big is your collection?
Pretty modest.
Pretty modest. Okay,
Pretty
okay.
modest. It's a lot heavy to move around when you're moving, and um, but yeah, I have like a bit of this, some Radiohead albums, some I don't know, a bit of everything.
Um,
Bossa Nova, I really love some Bossa Nova too.
yeah, yeah. I lived in Thailand for a little bit. When I was in Thailand, I went to this place called Studio Lime.
Hmm.
Studio Lime is like no other. It's like it's a place where they have like five technics all
Oh
connected at
shit!
one time, and then it just like people come in and they bring these obscure old Thai music records that only one
Nice.
copy of this exists, and they play it and they mix it in with this track, and it's like there's all kind of things going on there. And so
Hmm.
I just learned about vinyl culture before moving out of the country, and in seeing that I'm like, wow, vinyls are such a great thing. Like, do you feel that dealing with vinyl um, gives you a particular connection or almost an influence because you're maintaining this vinyl on like history? Like, do you like have you ever thought about it that way? Like,
I've thought about it as there are some gems out there, gems that you can't find on YouTube or Spotify,
hmm
and it does feel like an honor to have that record and
hmm
preserve it. For example, the one that's playing right now, one of my it's really favorite of mine.
hmm
Can't find it anywhere, and
yeah,
I hope to have it for as long as I can. Really,
yeah,
you know,
like the movie Book of Eli. You saw that movie?
partially.
Partially, right? So the concept, and it's like having they could become a future one day. I thought about that like when I was
Yeah.
living out of the country. There could be a future where like the Wi-Fi stopped working for like a whole day,
Oh, for
and
sure.
I was in Vietnam, and it was like, oh right, I can't listen to Spotify. I can't listen to if it's not on my Apple Music, my iTunes already. I can't listen. But if you have a vinyl, because of how simple this thing is, you could even make it without electricity. You could create a mechanism, and you could have a hand crank, and it spins, and it's a little like like a horn on it, more or less, and it'll play the vinyl. So like if in history the vinyl was like hieroglyphic, you know.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
holds it holds information,
Mm-hmm.
from that era. Whoever like or whatever band like made the album, pressed it.
Mm-hmm.
There's all that characteristic built into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for every vinyl, is there also like a metal mold somewhere
Metal mold,
that they use to
maybe.
press it?
I think yeah, they have like the master press, perhaps, that they base the rest of these plastic versions of.
But it would technically you couldn't play it. You could use it to press more vinyl, I guess, but if you couldn't play it like that. Somewhere I imagine there's a big silver, big metallic version of all of these somewhere.
I think so. Who's putting something else?
Mm-hmm. The record labels own those exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in the contract.
yeah, yeah. And I think nowadays they probably can digitally make one or something that's more moldable. It could be plastic or something, and they make that and use that to press them. But a long time ago, yeah, they had to use that big metal thing come down and
Yeah, I've seen videos like that.
yeah.
It's a very expensive process.
Hmm. Yeah, right. I want to get some vinyls. I'm still gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen. I should just press out like 100 of them and not even worry about selling them more or less. Just distribute them in places in the world so that no matter what happens, my music is will be out there somewhere living. You know about search for Sugar Man or search for what was it? Sugar Man. The Search for Sugar Man. Searching for Sugar Man. It's a movie. Okay, so what happened was there's this guy. I think he's from Tennessee. Where's he from? He's an artist from like Tennessee or something like that. And he pressed the vinyl of his music, and somehow he sold it to a person who took it to South Africa.
Okay.
And that person like owned like a venue,
Yeah.
and it was one of his favorites. So he would play it for people, and everyone would hear, and they fell in love with his music. So this guy, before Spotify, he had like thousands of people in South Africa who were his fans because of that one vinyl and the copies that were made and cassettes and then history. And then people will actually try to find him, like the Search for Sugar Man. Like, where is this guy?
The Search for Sugar Man.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah.
Nice.
Do you often try to spin vinyls backwards? Have you ever gotten to that?
What do you mean backwards?
Like in reverse? I mean, yeah.
Some turntables have that functionality. But those get pretty. It sounds pretty demonic sometimes, but it's
right.
still pretty cool.
Yeah, right. Everything reverse sounds cool.
Yeah, like that, or whatever that was.
Oh, so if you went back and that was a reverse sound.
Yeah, that was a reverse sound.
So that means if you go back on this, that's something in.
It should sound normal if I reverse that part.
And
yeah.
What do you think it is?
I think it's a small clip of just a reverse track, maybe.
Yeah, it's not like
a fill, I think.
Like a fill, okay. Like so, it could just be like a drum sound or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. It's cool. We mentioned that, and there we go. So I guess when talking about vinyls and stuff like that, like anything about a collection, you just want to know people's like personal favorites, or like if there's any like, is there any like what's it called, like I'm trying to think of one of those things from a movie, like the thing they're looking for, like the Emerald Tablet, not an Emerald Tablet, but like the Ark of the Covenant for albums of you, the one that should be, if there were like all the albums in the world, all the vinyl records were like gone, this one vinyl should be maintained, whether you owned it or ever saw it on vinyl or not. Like, is there any piece of music for you that you feel like is the most important vinyl, or
the one that, at least, it's hard to say, at least for the records that I do own, I could like name a handful. There's not like one. All right, perhaps like Radiohead's OK Computer.
Okay.
Like I have that on vinyl, and
Uh-huh.
if I were to somehow lose all my records except that one, that'd be okay. Maybe the whole this Radiohead discography.
Okay.
I've been for a moment in my time I was like collecting all their discography on vinyl, and I have a good majority of it.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I would consider that to be like the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay.
At least for my collection, but yeah.
So for me, it'd be Steely Dan.
Steely Dan.
Yeah, Steely Dan, Asia. That one vinyl. If I could, I don't have it.
Yeah.
I never saw that vinyl. But if I had that, or if I could keep that one on vinyl, that'd be great. Like, have you came across any Steely Dan vinyls?
No.
Jay-Z?
No.
Nas? It's certain. I just feel like the vinyls. Like, what about Wu-Tang?
I wish.
Okay, not even Wu-Tang. Okay, I need to. I definitely have an interest in it. I need to like fulfill that. Like So let's talk about people who were trying to fulfill their like interests in like acquiring some vinyl records. Is it better to go private? Seek out like private collectors and try to pick up what I want on like a site or something, or is there some choice stores? And like I know Queens has a few, but like record shops you would
There's multiple routes. It
mm,
depends on your how much expendable income you have. If you really want the specific rare ones, you could go to Discog and like get a feel for the price. But um, and if it's a record that you really want, then yeah, maybe like buying the fresh press would be a way for it. That's what I did with the Radiohead albums. But part of the journey of like discovering like really interesting music on vinyl is going to maybe like a hole in the wall thrift shop that has some records.
mm-hmm.
And if you just spend the time, maybe you'll find something you like. There was a store in Greenpoint, maybe it's still open. It's a thrift store called The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's right on the northern part. If you get off like Greenpoint Ave, and you keep walking north. On the outside, it just almost looks like a backyard sale or something. But on the inside, towards the back, they have walls of records.
Mm-hmm.
And the catch is that all the records are like priced like $1 or $2, but the catch is like you need to do the digging.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you be like an old school crate digger.
Yeah.
And I found like some really great records doing that.
Uh-huh. Wow. So are there any conversation points you would like to make in your own interview?
Conversation points.
Conversation points, yeah, like something you would like to talk about.
I guess I'm more curious about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. How's your musical progression been like?
My
Let's say,
musical progression.
yeah. Let's say you can talk about either uh, your thinking of what it means to be a musician personally,
Mm-hmm.
how you maintain a healthy mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a roller coaster. So
Yes.
everyone manages it differently. So I always like to hear how
The healthy mindset thing. I would say that a long time ago, I started practicing Nichiren Buddhism, and one of their like main tropes is like turn poison into medicine, right? So then anything you get from the apothecary is useful. At that point, it's like no matter how I feel, no matter how I'm thinking, I could try to make use of it. Now I do want to have a healthy mindset. I do want my mind to be healthy. I do want things to flow in a healthy way. However, sometimes, sorry,
DJ. I just
mhm. sometimes it's like chaotic.
oh yeah
Things going through the head, like or like sometimes like maybe you have a misunderstanding with another person or something like that.
yeah
Those are really difficult.
between another musician or
Not another musician or a person about music, especially when it's about music. That can be so weird.
yeah
It
exactly
can be so weird. Like
you're
I was like,
I'm thinking this way, but the other person has a completely different take on
yes.
it.
Now I kind of expect I don't expect. I would hope, and the people I love to work with, they kind of can go back to square one with anyone.
Right.
Like I meet you, and it's like, hey, look, what's your rate right now? It could be thousands of dollars. You could be like, yo, for me to spin a record for like 1 minute, for me to drop the needle costs $1,000.
Yeah, people charge that. It's crazy.
And it doesn't matter how many records I play after that. Drop it. I could play the same one on loop for hours, and it costs $1,000. And then I'm the person who comes along, and I'm like, hey, I figured out a new way for you to drop the needle that you probably didn't drop it like quite like this. So, are you interested in dropping it with me? and we figure out what we can make from it, or I could try my best to, and I can and facilitate that $1,000 it costs for you to drop the needle. But I know that if we drop it the way it's going to be great. So let's do it, or I can pay you to do it. But I always have this thing about you can hire hands, but you can't hire heart. And it's like, you know, I hate to find myself in a dilemma when someone has hired me for my heart, but my heart is like, hey, this is not lined up quite right for me. So hey, I'm here with you. I support you in everything you do, but you can say I'm officially not in that. And then my hands are like, well, hey, you've been working, man, so you know how to do this shit. So let's do it. Let's make it happen. And then you listen, and you're like, hey, it actually sounds pretty good. Your heart's like, yeah, imagine how it would sound if I had something to do with that shit. Right, exactly.
Oh,
you know,
shit.
but if people want to pay for the hands,
Yeah.
my hands can make something you'll love. And so the healthy mindset is just I always want to learn something.
Yeah.
Sometimes I could be like in a situation that makes me feel uncomfortable. Like the latest one I can impart is, for example, to say like, imagine working with someone who is like at the top of your field.
Yeah.
So far at the top that it's like echelons away.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, okay, I'm here with that person. Some people would say, hey, listen, I believe that what I'm doing down here has value from here to beyond where you are. So check it out. And some people are like, well, hey, it might have that value, but it may not be the right time. It may not be the right place. I might hold back. I held back last time. I didn't hold back, but I didn't put my work out there.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because the situation was more or less about something else. So I said, you know what? I'm going to wait until the right time for this. I don't have to force it to happen. I believe that much that I could be here and not be forcing it. But it's like being at a casino, right? I drop you off in the front door of a casino in Vegas. I gave you $10,000.
Is this kind of like imposter syndrome? Is that what you're describing?
I don't know if it's I don't know what that is exactly. I heard about it so much. I know what it kind of means.
It's like when you doubt yourself.
You doubt
a lot.
yourself.
You doubt yourself being in that situation.
I won't say doubt in myself being in this situation. It's kind of like that, but this analogy I think is perfect. If all your bills are met, all your needs are met technically, but you don't have $1 million,
Yeah.
right? And I drop you off at a casino, and I say, "Here's 10,000." You leave here, the 10,000 stays at this casino. If you leave, but you can leave with more. You can't leave with 10,000. You can only leave with more, and the only way to earn money in a casino is to gamble.
Right.
Or to beg.
Okay.
And it's like, all right, so are you willing to gamble? Are you willing to gamble? Now, if you needed, $10,000 for something urgent, you're probably like, hey, let me just go ask a person for $1. Let me just go beg for like 20 minutes. If I get anything, it's enough for me to leave. Some people are like, hey, I got to go for the top thing. I'm going to try to turn this $10,000 into the most I can turn it into in this place. And I was in a situation like that, and I decided I more or less just left the 10,000 there for me to come back another day and be ready to gamble. Today I was like, I didn't want to gamble. I didn't want the outcome, the negative outcome. So I dove into that. I said all that, and that was all in my head at the present moment when you asked me that question. And so I think I got it organized in a healthy way. But I definitely had some moments where I was like, up at like 5 a.m., not after staying all night, but waking up early just to reflect before the day,
Reflect before the day, yeah.
Reflect before the day. Yes.
If I don't get to sleep, if I'm up until 4, I'm definitely reflecting towards about the day.
If you're up until 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But what about when you wake up at 4?
I'm usually not my best when I wake up at 4.
No.
No. Yeah. I usually just try to go back to sleep because sleep is really important. I'm a completely different person if I don't get my sleep.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm just not a human.
Hmm. Yeah. So so in closing, because like I feel like whenever we do the podcast, like especially when it's really good, like it, I feel like it's always a good moment to try to like think about closing, but it doesn't usually end there for some reason. But we'll try to like so in closing, um, uh, what if what do you think is the power of music, like far as like to be shared, like like if you were to someone would say, hey, could you donate one vinyl record to someone, right? And you had to think about what that record could mean to another person. What is that comprise to you? Like what does that meaning comprise of?
I'm not really following.
My fault. That was a weird question at the end. But I kind of meant like, say for example, like for me, I can answer that question. So if someone was like, hey Stanford, here's this vinyl record, I want you to go and give it to someone.
Okay.
And who would I give it to? Like, and what I think it would mean to them. Like, I think to the person, the ideal person to give it to will be a person who would recognize it as something that matters in like a way, like, like we said earlier, how it's hieroglyphic, how it's a meaningful thing. Like, I used to always look when I saw a guitarist, like a professional guitarist, destroy a guitar on stage.
Yeah.
I think like, damn, that was probably like a $3,000 guitar he just destroyed on stage. And it's like, okay, I understand that he kind of ended a whole world. Some kid somewhere wish he could have that $3,000 guitar, and if he was to drop it in his hands, he'd he'd go crazy with it. He'd become whatever he want. He's like do so much because it's so perfect. But here we are destroying it. you know, some person you give a record to, they could see it as like they could actually connect with it as like a real thing. So I don't know. I guess it's kind of like a sound bite, even
Mm-hmm.
like a like if you gave like a quick sound bite, like what is in one sentence, what is like the most important thing about owning or having a piece of vinyl record?
It's a more tangible feeling. I'd say, like you don't need your phone. You don't need to be connected to Wi-Fi. So it's you can detach yourself from modernity in a sense. You can live in the moment, right? And um, and that's rare and valuable these days. I'd say you can take the time to fully listen, no ads, just straight up plastic and like audio coming from the speakers. Um, and there are I do that sometimes. I'm like I want to listen to this whole record without any interruptions. You just put it on, you sit back, and you enjoy. You hear the warmth, you hear the crackling, and the analog warmth that comes through the speakers. It does resonate a bit differently than putting on your air headphones and then going for a walk. It's a different experience. So I would always recommend anyone to like just buy a cheap turntable, find a album of one of your favorite artists, and just put it on, and that could be like the start of a rabbit hole.
Start a rabbit hole. Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. This has been Hip Hop High Notes at the High Note in historic New York City, Lower East Side. We're here with John. Uh, uh, Sorry, I can't remember. I forgot the word. Mod Bill.
There we go.
So it was Mod Bill, right? Yes,
Yeah.
Mod Bill, right? Yeah, here with John Modville. Thank you so much, everybody. You have a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Hip Hop High Notes. This episode was hosted by Stanford Reed. Follow him on Instagram at STANFORDREIDSME. That's Stanford Reed SME. And you can follow our special guest, Modville, at MODVILLL. That's Modville. Thanks for tuning in for this episode of Hip Hop High Notes, recorded live at High Note in the historic Lower East Side. Have a wonderful day. And thanks for tuning in. This is Hip Hop High Notes.